for me to be successful, I have to play with that emotion and that passion. It's just my persona. And I think if I wasn't playing tennis, I feel like I'd be the same way. Part of being a performer is playing with those emotions and going out there and not being afraid to be authentic.
Welcome to Tennis Insider Club. I am Borja Duran, and together with my partner, Caroline Garcia, here is where tennis stories and life conversations intersect. Join us as we uncover the untold personal journeys of the icons of the court. From laughter to life lessons, it's all here.
Do you support climate change? We know you don't, but your money probably does. Be part of the solution. Find out how you can use your money for good.
Are we recording?
Yeah, now we are. So you have to behave now.
Yeah, I gotta behave now. Yeah, I mean, I think it's true. Like tennis it can be a really brutal sport. Like I think everyone that follows tennis is familiar with the game and likes to watch the highlight videos of all the great shots that are being hit and then, you know, kind of diving into some of the things and the micro social interactions of what happens like on the tennis court. But they don't really get a behind the scenes look of everything that goes on. And, you know, when I was at a tournament earlier this year, and at a big tournament, 1,000 level tournament, I had to move to a different hotel like 3 or 4 different times. The first hotel I went to was connected to a McDonald's and it had like a bar above me and it was really loud. And I was like, well, you know, I'm happy to stay here, but like since I'm playing in a tournament, I do need to like get a good night's sleep. So I'm probably gonna have to move. You know, and in another circumstance, I'd probably just deal with it and be like, okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. But then like second hotel I go to, super moldy. And then third hotel, I'm like, if I'm moving again, I got to get this right. So I am going to pick the hotel and pay out of pocket, which it's usually their obligation to pay for the hotel or accommodation. And I moved a third time, but I was thinking, I was like, this has been like a kind of difficult process. And I only have like a day or two to kind of get acclimated and ready. And, you know, this is what the focus has been on. And so I think people often think we have a much more glamorous experience on tour. Mm-hmm. It's certainly not. Like moving hotels a few times certainly isn't the worst experience in the world, but you know, it's not
the lack of balance, I guess, right? Because traveling is fine, but like not like 50 weeks per year or 48 weeks per year. That's what
I mean, and we play so much. And I mean, as you know, like when you're going far in the tournaments and when your ranking's higher, you're competing more and playing more matches. And, you know, you add that into, you know, the delayed flights when you're trying to get from one place to another and your flight keeps getting canceled and your tennis rackets have gotten lost and you know, you've sat on the runway for 3 hours and you're literally like trying to get to your match that's that day. Like I've had that experience earlier in the year. I played qualifying of a tournament and then won a few rounds and then had to go after I lost, like that next day, fly and then compete on the same day. Like that stuff is
not
always
ideal mentally, and it's exhausting, and physically also it with the lack of sleep and everything, it's tired, fatigue, and you don't know how your body is going to cope with it, how it's going to perform on court, and you have to deliver because you're the only one on court.
Right. And it's not like, you know, in team sports where when you have a day where you feel a little off, you can put another player in or you know, say, hey, not today, but maybe I'll try again tomorrow, the next game. You know, it doesn't really work like that. And I think the way our schedule works is it's not something that's able to last long term for most players. Most people aren't going to be able to sustain this type of lifestyle for a long time. And I think having lived a very normal life before playing college tennis and being at university and kind of going through that experience and living a very normal life, like I said, and jumping into this world, it was really hard for me at first. I didn't know what to really think of all of the different things and the travel and, it being individual sport too. It can be very lonely and isolating, and, your good days can be good. They're probably not going to be as great as when you're on a team, and you don't have as many people to share those positive memories and experience with. So that's hard. But then your tougher days, I think, get exacerbated in some ways because you are alone. And, that part of it, being away from family and friends on your tough days. I think we all have, like, for the most part, we have a pretty good group of women on tour, I feel like, that are pretty cool. I feel like we all get along very well. Like, we don't have a lot, like, honestly, like, I feel like we don't have, like, a lot of, like, drama and, like, people that are, like,
I think the generation of now, it's like everyone gets along.
Yeah. And I feel like, I talk to so many players that are older, and they're like, oh my God, like, that wasn't my experience. It was brutal in the locker room. They'd cry every day. I feel like that's not, like, our vibe on tour, which has been amazing. And it's amazing it's that way in individual sport. But at the end of the day, too, sometimes when you want to hang out with your friends, they've had a really tough day and a hard match, and they want to go to bed early. And you're like, hey, like, I'm looking for, like, a fun night out, or, like, trying to get my mind off this thing. Do you want to join? And they're, like, tired. And, like, so even though you have these close friends and there is some level of camaraderie on tour, it's just tough because I think everyone's going through similar things, and it's hard. People are tired, people are exhausted, and there's not a lot of free time for other stuff, and I think that part of it is, it makes players, have a desire to have a life outside of tennis and out of work, understandably so, right? I mean,
you mentioned that you had a very normal life before going to college and WTA tour. How did you start to play tennis?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I tried different sports. I really loved dance and theater. That was my first passion. I really thought as a kid that I would become a ballerina and go to Broadway and do something theatrical. I loved it. And I told my mom when I was little, I want to be in the Nutcracker. That's my dream. And my mom decorated the bedroom with ballerina wallpaper, and there's a little ballerina in the ceiling fan, and it would spin around. And I just loved anything related to dance and theater and singing too. And I think the hard part about that world is that when you're younger, at least from my experience, like you would practice a lot. You do a lot of lessons. It's a tough. It's not an easy thing, right?
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing, and you train and do all these things and rehearse for a recital that comes around every few months, and then that's it. And I went to a school where accomplishments were very much celebrated, and each weekend, after a long weekend, we'd be able to bring in our accomplishments from over the weekend. So people would come in with their trophies from soccer, their little medals, or something they painted with their mom. And there was a boy that would bring his trophies into school, and he'd always have two. He'd have one from singles and doubles. And I went to my dad and I was like, how does this guy get these like really cool trophies? Like it's really interesting. I've never seen anything like it. And how can I get trophies like that? And he's like, well, usually that's like in sports, and Garrett plays tennis. So if you play tennis, you could get some trophies too if you earn them.
Super.
And my dad played tennis and played different leagues, and he was a pretty good player. And was in our area, would play with like everybody. I feel like everybody knew who my dad was in our little tennis community. And he started hitting with me a little bit in the park, and I started playing against the backboard a lot. I had a little ball machine. My parents would save up some money for me to be able to go and have lessons and do some clinics with other kids. And it got to the point where my parents were like, well, you kind of need to choose between, one or the other because we can't really commit to both. There's time restrictions. And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do the tennis. And I made that decision because my dad had me watch some type of film or documentary about the life of professional dancers and people in theater. And I also got to learn about, Anna Kournikovas, and she had the fancy car and the cute outfits, and she's making all this money, and she's this woman of like independence and success, right? And I was like, I was watching this, I can't remember what it was called, but it was like these dancers were all living in the same apartment, and they were living off of like macaroni and cheese, and I was thinking, this tennis thing seems like pretty cool. I could, and my dad's like, if you like win those tournaments, like Serena Williams has her own house and they have their own car, and they were like, I feel like these tennis players were like the real life Barbies, and I just saw so much possibility through them. And I thought it was so interesting. And so I was like, I want to be like them. So little did I know, all the challenges that come along with being a professional tennis player and the ups and downs. That's certainly wasn't portrayed in whatever I was watching on TV. But I think that's ultimately what kind of got me serious about tennis in a lot of ways.
And then you went to college. So you went to regular school, I guess, and then college. How was this experience? You were already very good in tennis.
Yeah. I think I was like number 1 in the country as a junior. And I won a bunch of like the national tournaments. I never really played ITFs. I would play one ITF a year, the Eddie Herr, because that was like 40 minutes from us.
Yes.
But we didn't really have the budget for international travel, and I didn't have support from my federation. But I did have some good success at the national level. But given that I didn't come from financial opportunity, it was a no-brainer to go to college. You have to have some type of funding to be able to start your tennis career. And at 16, 17 years old, I didn't really know how to do that and go about that. And once I went to college, and I was thinking about having a tennis career, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to really figure out if if this is what I want to do, how am I going to have the resources to be able to start my career. And I was really lucky to have connected with someone that was in finance in New York that was able to help me with a private loan that I eventually ended up paying back once I had made a certain amount of money. And then another person that was really passionate about tennis that was CEO of a large company at the time that ended up doing a grant for me and a male player on the collegiate side. And because of that, I feel like I was able to start my career pretty quickly. I was able to go to a lot of tournaments, not have to worry financially. It is so hard when you're starting off in those tournaments playing like $10,000 and $25,000 events, and you grind through 4 matches, and you've played 3-hour matches and you face 15 match points down and lost serve 85 times, and
you're winning 1 point
and you get like 2 points and you've made $302. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, that'll pay for one therapy session this week. That's going to cover one therapy session.
And a couple of lunches.
Yeah, not even, So, that financial support was crucial. But, as a 16, 17-year-old kid, I didn't know how to figure out. I wasn't very good at asking for help. And I wasn't someone that ever felt comfortable asking for help if it especially was like a financial ask. That was something that I feel like my parents, it's very much against my values, and it was uncomfortable. So I had to learn how. I'm like, okay, but even if it's not tennis and I'm trying to run a business, I'm going to have to learn how to raise money and that sort of thing. So I think that experience was really good for me. Yeah.
During your college career years, at one point did you think like maybe I don't become a tennis pro, and I just go like to work at business?
Yeah, I the first year I was on tour, after a few tournaments, I was like, if I'm not in the top 100, I think I'm probably going to pivot and maybe go to law school, because this is a tough lifestyle, especially, I think what we're doing is hard, but the players that are playing at the ITF level and not able to kind of break through the top 100, that is a whole nother set of challenges that I think is incredibly difficult. And I am not equipped to deal with that. Even now, I am not equipped to deal with that lifestyle. That is tough. And I think there's so many issues with that probably need to be addressed by the tours and other organizations at some point. But I said to myself, knowing that wasn't for me, I said, if I'm not in the top 100, I'm going to go to law school. So I was traveling around with an LSAT book and thinking about where I would have liked to try to apply to go to law school. And, it got to the point, I think I was maybe struggling. I think I was at 150 and I was there for a little bit of time for a few months, and I was struggling to get into the top 100. And it's like, it's really looking like law school at this point. So I was starting to look at on the website of where I could take the test. And then it was funny because then I ended up qualifying for Indian Wells, winning a few rounds at Indian Wells, and then I made semifinals the next week in Miami. And I was like, oh, wow, the second you kind of stop wanting something so bad, you get it. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, that sometimes we want something, you force it, and it doesn't necessarily go your way. But sometimes when you kind of just let go a little bit, I think...
You were playing more relaxed maybe at the moment, like...
I think maybe playing a little bit more relaxed, but also, just taking a little pressure off myself too, and just saying like, look, if I do well, I'll do well. And if I don't, I'm going to be going into a lot of debt and student loans and trying to set myself up for a future differently. So yeah, I think a little bit more relaxed at that time. And, but then at the same time, I wanted to play professionally. So thinking too, like, okay, what is it that I really need to do and address within my game to kind of get me to that next level? And I think the physical fitness was a huge component of that. I think transitioning from college tennis to professional tennis, initially was challenging because I went from being used to playing like 2 matches a week to then, like, when you're going far in tournaments, sometimes playing 4, 5, 6, 7 matches. And I really didn't feel like my body was ready for that. There were a lot of tournaments I had to pull out of, injuries that were popping up left and right. And I felt like once I got to the point where I got a little bit physically stronger and committed to a very specific fitness program and strength training, I felt like that really helped me, not necessarily stay away from injuries, but just be able to deal with them a little bit differently and be able to get through and push through matches that I wouldn't have in the months prior. So that was the biggest difference, is I think my physical fitness improved so much. And that really showed. Like, once I broke through the top 100, everybody was like, whoa, guns blazing, Danielle Collins just like ripping winners, hitting like 120 mile an hour backhands left and right. And, where did this come from? This is just like a tsunami of hard hitting shots.
Nice. And as you start growing in the rankings, like, does something change? Does the pressure to start winning tournaments hit, or you're just like, oh, I made it and I'm just enjoying it?
Yeah, I think there were a few years there on tour where I, was going sometimes deep in tournaments. I made finals of a slam, quarterfinals, semifinals, also doing well. But then sometimes not lifting up as many trophies that I would have wanted to. And I think that was also a product of sometimes winning a few matches and then having injuries, and then with endometriosis and rheumatoid arthritis and dealing with that stuff, I felt like there were just days I wasn't able to get my body to do what I wanted it to do. And that really was a big learning curve as I, established myself as a pretty solid player at the WTA level. But I feel like, I've always gone into every tournament like wanting to win each match and try to lift up as many trophies as possible. But it's hard. I mean, we have such strong depth across the board. Anyone can win any week. And, I've gone to lift some trophies, but there's also been times where I've been close to lifting some trophies and it just hasn't happened and gone my way, which has also been fine. But yeah, I think as I got on tour, I settled in pretty quickly. I really felt like once I got into the top 100 that I deserved to be in the top 100 for sure. I was playing a really solid level, and I think there's a huge physical difference between, the top 100 and top 50, and the top 50 and the top 20, and the top 20 and the top 10, right? And I think, I was definitely at the level, I maintained that kind of top 30 ranking for a long time, and then had a period of time where I was in the top 10 and truly played like a top 10 player. So I think it's safe to say from a physical standpoint, I was ready.
Of course.
Yeah. From a mental standpoint, I think I was also ready too, but I think the mental stuff in tennis is interesting. I feel like a lot of the things that weigh on you, it's not the tennis.
For sure.
It's not the tennis that's the issue. It's all of the other stuff outside of the tennis. Like when you book a practice court at 10 a.m. and you show up and they tell you, you know what, we don't have a court for you till 5. And you're like, but hey, like I have a match like on center court tomorrow. And what do you mean I don't have practice till 5 p.m.? I'm first on tomorrow. What's the deal? Or, you finish up a tough semifinal match and you're going to play the final the next day and you come off the court and you're like, hey, dinner, it's 10 o'clock. Like, do you guys have food? And they're like, tough luck, your problem. And you're like, but everything's closed. You had food and now you don't have food here. And I'm not even asking for good food. I'm asking for like shitty rice.
And some chicken, some fried chicken.
Yes, like food that's been in the refrigerator for 4 days, like anything. And then, you wake up the next day because you didn't want to, eat gluten and dairy and the things that you're allergic to, and you skip the meal, and then you go into your finals and you're like, I'm exhausted. I haven't eaten since, I had breakfast, but I missed dinner, and like those headaches, or, dropping your racket off at the stringer and you're like, hey, I want it at this tension. And then you play the match and you're like, whoa, like feels a little tight. Like, I don't know what's going on. And then you're kind of like, well, this hasn't happened before. You keep playing with it. And then you go out after the match. You're like, just out of curiosity, how many pounds was that racket strung at? And they're like, they say the number and you're like, oh, that was 10 pounds tighter than what I requested. Oh, we had a miscommunication in middle of quarterfinals of a slam. Like, awesome. That's great. Thanks. That's the kind of stuff that I think just wears on you. Or
how did you deal with media, with expectation, with fans?
I think I studied, my major at UVA was media studies.
Okay.
And even though I feel like I had some education around media studies and, being versed in this topic, I certainly was not prepared for, I think with my game style and on-court persona, I think when I initially, turned pro, I was like the villain. And it's kind of funny because I think like when I talk about this with other players, they laugh because they're like, yeah, you're not the villain. Like, you're like got a big personality, but like, yeah, it's not really it.
Did you enjoy it? Like the fact that from the outside they're like putting you these
I mean, sometimes it was comical, and other times I'm like, wow, like this is like borderline, like this is like really like slanderous and like not great. That if people can just write whatever they want, and there's repercussions for me, but not repercussions for the person that like fabricated a story entirely. That part was hard to understand and accept at times. And I think Sometimes too, like you're put in situations where, people don't realize, but we deal with very different sets of issues than a normal person. And I think for us, our good days are highlighted and our bad days are really emphasized. And, most people, if they had a really bad day at work, if they sent some ridiculous emails or performed poorly at their job, they don't have to go into a press conference where there's journalists who I genuinely think want to do a good job, and like they're doing their job in the context of the way we set up our interviews. Like we have these press conferences that are kind of weird, right? Like you're sitting at this like desk and you're like up higher and you're like right, and they're like asking you questions when you've like lost like a tough match. And these matches, like you've worked your whole life for this, right? Like everybody on tour, we've done this since we were little kids, and we've worked our asses off. We were out there with our moms and dads, like at 5 a.m, right? Like running like laps around the park and doing all this hard work and intensive training. And we trained our whole lives for this, and we lose on the biggest stage in the world and it feels like crap. And then you go into the press conference, and I think, you want to be in good spirits, and the journalists also, like, they want to do a good job, but the format of like how those press conferences work isn't always the most like friendly vibe. And it's not because of the journalists, it's because of like the format of how we have the conversation. I feel like if we had the conversation like this, it might be a little bit different. But when we have the conversation where it's
also,
like
when they start, so
it's like an interrogation.
yeah. How do you feel? How did you play? Like, well,
Yeah.
everyone saw.
Right. And I think sometimes those questions, like, they come from a good place, but then when you're having a bad day, then like they don't feel good. And I feel like it then becomes like, you feel like when you answer something and they have a quick follow up and you're like, oh my God, am I like being interrogated now? And that can be challenging, but I certainly, I think it can be an issue for some people, but it's certainly not the biggest issue in the world. For me, I feel like I pretty like happy-go-lucky, and I've always been like, oh, okay, like somebody wrote something bad about me, like I hope they feel better. Like I feel bad, like they typed that out, and like I don't know what to sometimes make of it. I've always kind of said too, like, I don't understand how people are able to take like a lot of pride in like just reporting on someone's like bad day. Yeah. Like that's sad to me, and I think that's more of a reflection not of where the athlete's at, but where the person who's writing it's at. Oftentimes, like that wouldn't be something that I would take much pride in. And I know if I was coming home and my parents were like, "Hey, like, what did you do today? Like, how was work?" And I was like, "Oh, I criticized someone pretty heavily and judged them, and I don't really know them, and I just kind of criticized them and in an unconstructive way, and then I produced it for the world to see." My parents would be like, yeah, we need to work on some things.
It's same with social media, right?
Right.
Like now it feels like everyone is entitled to an opinion on someone's Instagram account, no? And that tennis players or sports people are not human beings. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think, I think there's a disconnect too in our world, because people get to see like what we're doing and we're playing matches, but they don't get to see behind the scenes as much. They don't get to see the vulnerability. And I think in that way, it makes us seem as if we're not human. Okay. And so people too, right, with social media have a voice. And a lot of times when their voice can be anonymous, people say things that they normally wouldn't say. Sure. And those comments can be anywhere from like aggressive to really like concerning for like everyone's health involved. Like sometimes when people have written me like really terrible things, I'm like, wow, like I'm not even like concerned for me, like I'm concerned for you. And that's sad. Like that's really sad. I think social media and the things that take place in that space say a lot about where we're at as a society, and a lot about where society is struggling with their mental health. I really empathize. And I think that's helped me a lot, because I think when you see like things through the lens of empathy, something you don't feel as bad sometimes, because you're able to say, okay, like that person, like they wrote that because like they lost a bunch of money on me, and for them, like that amount of money like is a hole in their pocket. And like feel sorry that they are dealing with that. That's sad, you know. And I genuinely mean that. Like I just don't really take things super personal. I feel like I'm kind of a guy, like in that sense, that things are just like, you know, if somebody.
Yeah.
How do you handle?
Depends. I think I evolved. I'm a very emotional person, so sometimes I will take things more personally. But also with time, I learned to protect myself better and try to avoid those places where I can get hurt. And I know also, like after this experience, it's people who have those people have trouble, have problems, and they don't know what they're talking about, because you know it's only the people very close to you that know what you are going
They're
through.
only seeing life through their lens and
you're
not
always
our
trying
lens.
your best. So, but I had to learn to protect myself, because for me it's more emotional, it's more difficult.
Yeah, I certainly have had certain comments or things that people have said that made me really think or have hurt. I think we're all human in that sense. And I think all of us, like, I don't think there's a single person out there that doesn't want to be liked. I think we all genuinely want to be liked. And when you feel like someone's criticizing you heavily or attacking you, you know, it doesn't make you feel good. And like I said, a lot of times, like I really feel bad for the other person, or I worry, and I'm like, oh my God, is this person like okay? Do they have like the right people around them? Like I really wonder that sometimes. And I do think that can cause stress. And I think especially like when you come onto the tour, like you turned pro like at such an early age, and you were like so successful, like that's a lot when you have all eyes on you and people are, you know, analyzing and judging without really knowing.
Every single move, every single decision of choice making, and you
Yeah.
know, like you try your best, you know, like you have your own game style and you go for it, and you know it can work, you know it can not work, but it is the way you play, and it's your personality, and you try your best every single time. It's not
It's kind of like
on purpose.
I feel like tennis is kind of like working in finance. You know, there's, you know, people that invest like more aggressively, and then there's people that are a little bit more conservative. And if you're like an aggressive style, it's always should have, would have, could have. And
I like that one.
It's always should have, would have, could have. You could have done this differently. You could have done that differently. And it's like, well, sometimes, you know, you're just off by like a little bit. And like if you just, you know, I always say, like, I would always get annoyed with coaches when they're like, well, you should have done this differently. And it's like, yeah, but if that ball would have been in, you wouldn't have said anything. You would have been like, that was amazing.
I love it.
But it's just like the execution was this far off. And it's more like I need to figure out, like, okay, how can I make that shot more consistently, rather than being like, oh, I should have done this differently at this point in time. Because I'm really, when I'm in a high pressured situation, I'm really going to go out there and I'm really going to be thinking, you know what? He said I should have done this. And so I'm going to do that instead. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't, because you don't have time to think. So, yeah, I mean, I totally get it. Like, it's not easy going out there and, like, feeling like you're being judged. And I think for me as a person, like, seeing how so many people in the world only see life through their lens has made me a less judgmental person, which is good. It's challenged me because I don't want to be like that. I give people benefit of the doubt more than I probably used to. I feel like I try to just always like be considerate about what people might be going through, because I've had challenges and have had times where I've not felt well, or maybe to have not, you know, been the best version of myself, and that's because maybe emotions took over. I wasn't, you know, feeling my best that day. And so I try to take that into consideration if I see someone is, you know, behaving a certain way or doing something. and just not always, I challenge myself to not just see the world through my lens, but also through other people's perspectives.
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
How would you describe your personality on court?
I mean, it's true. Like, I'm an aggressive player, right? And it's just aggressive all around, right? And yeah, I feel like people are very taken back by the power and stuff, because it's a lot. And sometimes it's a lot for me to handle too, because sometimes I'm like, wow, maybe if I slowed this down a bit, might be able to think for a second.
It looks like it's working like better for you, no? Like when you get fired up, it looks like you're
Yeah.
really able to deliver.
Well, I think that's the thing that one of the things that so many non-athletes don't understand about performance. And I'm not even talking about like sports performance, like even if you're an actor or actress or someone on Broadway or a dancer, or you work on TV and you're an interviewer, like whatever it is you're doing, like in order, especially when you're in a job where your job is centered around performance, I think part of being a good performer is playing with passion and doing what you do with passion. And the way you demonstrate passion is through outward emotion. And you have to really lean into those emotions, whether they're positive or negative. I think you have to have the ability to be able to lean into those emotions. Of course, there's more people that can be stoic and be successful in what they do by doing that. And I give those people so much praise, because that is not me. I feel like I wear my heart on my sleeve. I learn so much from those people. I try to implement it to my life. It doesn't seem like I do, but I do really. Like, I've read so many books on, I love those books about stoicism, but gosh, I find it so hard to apply any of it to my life. It's hard. It's really hard, because I just really wear my heart on my sleeve. But with that, I think it's really true to be authentic to yourself. For me, this is how I am.
This is how it works for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of someone that's more stoic. But I used to love, and I still do. I love watching Naomi Osaka when she's performing at her best. I feel like she is just a stone cold killer out there, and I love it. I am fascinated. Elena Rybakina too is someone who doesn't show a lot of emotion, and she is amazing in how she's able to stay so calm and collected and composed. And I have so much respect for both of them and really enjoy watching them play. And I find it so fascinating because I'm so different. And but I know that for me to be successful, I have to play with that emotion and that passion for whatever reason. It's just my persona. And I think if I wasn't playing tennis, I feel like I'd be the same way. And what I do, I think performance is a huge part of my life, and part of being a performer is playing with those emotions and going out there and not being afraid to be authentic.
Sure.
Do
you look for ways outside of the tennis once you're like playing to get fired up, like with the crowd?
Yeah.
I have a good anecdote on this. I'm not sure if I wanted to share it, but we were playing quarterfinals in Miami. I don't know, you remember? Okay, let's
Sorry.
No, and I think
I was so embarrassed.
you did a double fault, and I mean, I didn't mean it as a disrespect or anything.
Yeah.
In fact, I didn't say anything, and I tried to stand up to support her because you were kicking her ass. So I wanted to like say, hey, hang in there, you can find a way. And I do remember, like, I was not looking at you, and I hear something like, this is not gonna work with me. And I looked, you were staring at me, like, shit, like I don't want to be in the middle of this drama, like. And then for the next, like, I don't know, 10 points, like, you were on fire.
Right,
you missed one shot. And everyone was like, come on. I was like, shit, I should not have standed up,
Well, it's
And I was
funny.
impressed in a good way. I was like, wow, like, it's amazing.
Just know, like, it's not personal too. Like, it's
know.
just like about me, like, I just have like, I think for me, I have to have something that like motivates me. And whether it's like a person, like doing something positive, negative, indifferent, or a thing like working for the trophy, right? Like trying to play because I want the trophy, or like I think I have to have some level of motivation. So I think sometimes for me, like what will motivate me is like banter. And I think a lot of people that like don't play sports like don't understand that. Like I think it's more normal for us, like when we're in practice, like the other day, like we were practicing and Ryan was videoing, and then I like looked at Ryan and I hit a winner on you and I did like this fist pump. And like you're just like, okay, like that's Danielle. Like I don't like you're not like bothered, like it's like fine. But for somebody like on YouTube comments, they're like, oh my gosh, what a terrible person she is. She disrespected my girl Caro, and I will never forgive her for that.
That was me.
That was unbelievable. Like she will never be forgiven in my book. I will never be a fan of her again. Where you're just like, yeah, like it's like part of sports and it's like what we do. And for you, you're like, yeah, like she was having like, you know, she wanted to like be fired up and somehow it got directed towards me. And you're like, okay, like.
Sure.
And then for me, I'm kind of like, after the fact, I'm like, oops. After the fact, I'm like, oops, sorry, my friend. Like, you know, forgive me. Like,
Me, I loved it. Not at the moment because you were...
I was fired up,
Yeah. But I have huge respect towards his attitude because it's easy to get like kind of, you know, like hidden and feel the pressure and the hate.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to go like over your limit. You have to try to go for more, and
or get your adrenaline growing.
Yeah, you have to take risks. So you need that confidence, that adrenaline. It's like sometimes, not as much now, but you know, like remember when umpire was doing mistake or you were getting in an argument and you were sure for the next 2 games, you were like,
I was like,
kill everybody.
Do you feel you thrive more like when you have like an adverse atmosphere on court?
I feel like I wouldn't say I necessarily thrive more. I definitely thrive.
Yeah.
But I like having the energy, like whether it's
side.
positive or negative.
Okay.
I like having some source of energy, and I feel like that usually motivates me one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I don't, if I have an adverse crowd, it's nice because you have more to banter about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think one of the things in tennis and professional tennis is like, it would be more interesting if we could like, if it could be like more normalized to like talk to each other, like, or joke around, like almost like in an exhibition, like during the matches. Yep. I think because it's so like, we go out there and it's like, okay, you're gonna walk in front of Caro, you're gonna go first, okay? And like I'm gonna signal you when you walk on court. And if you take like one step, they're like, you were out of here, girl. Like you wait till I say to go in the court. And you're like, okay. And they're like, and you can only go to the bathroom one time. Like it doesn't matter how bad you have to pee or if you're on your period, like you can only go to the bathroom one time. It's like such a serious, like like rigid like environment, and the referee's like in the chair, and you're like, okay, like this is our day to day. And
you need to take an anxiety pill before stepping on.
It's like, it's intense. Like you can't be funny out there. You got to have a straight face. And like, it just seems like, you know, the tennis culture like isn't super like lax about like just having fun or enjoying. And I really think like if people were like talking to each other more during the matches, it might be more interesting for the fans. But I also think it would help the players to relax a little bit. And like, I think it's great that the tours, like you can have the coaching between the points so that you can talk to your box, because it's so not healthy that you go out that you can, but like being upset or like getting, being upset or like, or having a tough moment, like that's part of life. And the difference is like when we get upset, it's emphasized and the camera's on us. Other people, the people in the comment section on YouTube and Instagram, it's not. Their bad days don't get highlighted because nobody cares about them.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
you know, like, so I think for us, like those little micro things get highlighted. It's like everybody has like a negative emotion or experience. And one of my biggest pet peeves is like, I don't think this narrative of like trying to be perfect and trying to be the perfect poised, like you have a proper answer for every single question. You always go to the net and you're like, and like I don't think that this is a good example for people.
No, that's for
I think it's better that like if you get mad at your boyfriend or your coach, what's more important is like how you work through that. And like I am not with you every day, but like I can tell that like based off of like our conversations and when we practice, like you guys are able to talk through things and get through things in a healthy way. tennis fans don't get to see that. They only get to see that little interaction. I think it's more important is like how you then, after you get upset or you have a tough moment, how you respond afterwards. And unfortunately, the way our world works, we don't get to show fans like how we work through things. Like I've had tough moments on court with players, and I can't tell you how many times like we've gone to the locker room. I'm like, hey, like, sorry about what happened. Like, can you forgive me? Like, I'm genuinely very sorry, and I hope you don't take it personal. I was having a bad day, or working the other way and someone being like, hey, like, I'm really sorry. Like, I hit you in the eye, and like, I didn't mean to like hit you with a ball. And I'm like, it's all right. Like, I'm gonna be okay. Or like, like, and that's the thing I think is important for the fans to realize is like, we're like pretty good people out there. I feel like everybody like responds to adversity pretty well and handles their, I mean, of course there's a few that, you sometimes they
but
don't,
it's just
but
like with the stress of wanting to deliver, to win the match, the intensity, the spotlight, you're so stressed and nervous that sometimes something that you will hear or you will see like when you're peacefully in your sofa will not affect you at all. But you're so high that sometimes you would just reach a bit more.
It affects
like,
people. I have friends,
exploding.
It's like one of my friends today was like, yeah, her and her husband got into an argument last week about, how he accidentally hit the button on the remote and then they lost like an important moment in the middle of the show. And she's like, what just happened? And then, and she even said, I'd like to say it was a discussion, but really, it was like it turned into an argument. And like, that was like a moment. And like, we have those moments, like we're human. I don't think that we're like, it's healthy for anybody to like expect us or ourselves, like to go out and be perfect and to always have the perfect response and the perfect answer. Like, I think what's more important is how do we work through conflict? How do we handle those moments afterwards and then move on from them? Like, I know, but going back to your question about like, I definitely do find like motivation in, any type of like banter reaction, sometimes, I've had coaches say too, because the thing I struggle with is like, for me as a person, I'm pretty like laid back and chill, but like off the court, on the court, I'm like kind of intense and I really bring the fire. But off the court, I'm pretty relaxed and like easygoing. And if I don't spend if I don't have a really concentrated effort into my on-court persona, it's not there. And I'm sure you've seen me play matches. People have seen me play matches. They're like, you didn't say anything the whole match. Like you literally were just like quiet. You didn't say anything and you didn't really like do much out there. And I've had coaches say to me like, yo, pick someone in the crowd and just like have a conversation with them. And it's funny, like I was in a press conference not too long ago where like during the match I said to my coach, I was like, yo, I've hit 12 double faults. Can you help me? Help me. I need some help. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Obviously, I've hit 12 double faults today. Like, what the heck? And like, I mean it from like kind of like a place of, being a little agitated with myself, but then also like from a place of like, yeah, help me. I don't know what to do. And then, you go into that press conference, they're like, what did you mean by that? What did you, like, why are you asking your coach for help? It's like, well, you obviously missed the 12 double faults before because, I'm trying to figure this out. And, they said we have on-court coaching. Am I not allowed to have a conversation with the guy over there? The other thing, too, is like the interactions with the boxes I've noticed with players. I feel bad because I feel like a lot of players, it's like, you can't talk like this when you're they can't hear you because there's some guy like clapping excessively and like making noise at unnecessary times and you're trying to have a conversation and somebody else's mom is like yelling from across the court and you're like trying to figure out, okay, like how can they hear me, how can I hear them, and it seems like you're yelling and you're not, like it's just because you're far.
It's far. Yeah, like with my coach I'm having a lot of issue because his voice is not like very loud, so what are you saying?
I have that same problem. It's like every coach that I've worked with except Ryan, because Ryan's voice carries so much, so it's perfect. And like I've had to tell coaches, I'm like, I don't even care if the other person hears you. Like,
Yeah, for
just
sure.
tell me like
Because
what
it's
you
frustrating not to be able
to hear. I know, like I don't even care if they hear you. It's not about like they can know what I'm doing. I just need some help with what I need. Like I don't care if they can hear. So Ryan, it's great because his voice carries a lot, which is a good thing when you're coaching from a far distance. But yeah, I think that like perception on TV, like it's like people just like
Looks
totally
like you're
forget you're like 50 yards away and like you're like
And all the people are clapping. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
most of
it's
the time
so
the
loud.
clapping around that makes it
Well,
the conversation impossible.
yeah.
for sure.
I mean, I can barely hear, especially in the bigger courts too, because you're even further away when
Yeah.
those boxes
Roland
are up in
Garros,
the.
it's like-
Yeah, you're not hearing anything unless you got a megaphone, you know.
Maybe you should work with earphones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure like being from France, and how is that like playing I know France is definitely known for being very passionate about their players, right? But being passionate about tennis in general, and
Yeah, like
What
Roland Garros is really like the event of the year in tennis. Like it feels
That's
like
it.
it's the only tournament I'm playing a year. Like all the other ones, they don't. No
what
one
about
cares.
Strasbourg?
No one cares. Like I play.
As well.
Come on, what about Strasbourg? Are they like showing up like that there?
Like I'm in trouble. Huh?
I felt like when we were in Rome, though, you had like a lot of people that were there for you.
Yeah, it was.
family
My
was there.
There was a lot of French people
Yes,
there.
Yes.
Well, they were Spanish, most of them.
Yeah, it was the family
Yeah.
of.
As I saw in Miami, that it worked
nah,
out. I
you're-
wanted to
Yeah,
bring
you're
the
gonna be
whole gang.
dangerous in Europe, especially once you're married, because you're gonna be like Spanish and French. Oh, that is dangerous.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I would go to South America also.
Yeah. Wow.
But,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably like same for you in US Open.
Yeah.
Like it's very intense and you want to do well, but also you feel like you have a lot of pressure and sometimes, we are, and compared to the American player, we are not as many.
Yeah.
So you have more spotlight on you.
Yeah.
The Americans, like they are 10 in the top 20. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which is good and not good personally also, but it's for sure like Roland Garros is very special.
Yeah. I can tell. I mean, it's special, even for me, and I'm not French. So
Okay.
I mean, all of the Grand Slams. I think that
What's your
there's,
favorite tournament?
I would say my favorite tournament, I've always felt most at home in Australia. For
Okay.
whatever reason, that's that
your
is
best
like
result.
I feel most at home there. I just feel like the tennis culture there is such a healthy one. I feel like people just genuinely love the sport in a way that is really admirable. I feel like it's pretty non-biased. It's just very much looking at the game for what it is, what it truly is, versus
Just the game, yeah.
yeah, and instead of like the dramas and all of that. I feel like even when I played like finals of Australian Open and played Ash Barty, like it was like an intense crowd, of course, because Ash was from Australia, but
Respectful.
it was respectful. It was a really cool environment. I feel like afterwards it was something that I looked back and was fond of, those memories. And I just have always really enjoyed playing there. I think the tropical weather too, those extreme hot conditions, I just love it. I love it being a good scorching day out there. I'm like, thriving in that type of heat. And I think that's why I've had some of my best results in Australia and then in Miami, and Charleston, because those are pretty, those are more tropical conditions. So, it's too bad I didn't play Cancun last year. Too bad I didn't make year end last year. I know a lot of people weren't crazy about that event, but I may have, done well in that type of heat. That is a hot place. I don't know. I seriously don't know. But I doubt it, actually. But I've always really liked playing in the hot conditions of Australian Open. I think coming to Wimbledon is so special because the history, the way they treat us, the facilities. I mean, it's just. It is beautiful. It is just stunning. I love being here. I was teary-eyed when I came as a qualifier, as they'd say. Remember, I was at transport, and they're like, "Are you a qualifier or player?" And I'm like, "Oh," I was like, "I'm a qualifying player." I was like, "Okay," but I get it. With the sites being separate, I felt like when I got the tour after I lost in the first round of qualies and went to look at the grounds, I had tears in my eyes. I was like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm here in London and walking around Wimbledon. This is the coolest experience ever. And I was like, and I'm not coming back unless I'm a player in the main draw, not qualifier, player.
Now it's
So-
your last year.
Yeah,
How are
that's
you
my
feeling
last
about it?
year. And U.S. Open too is a wonderful event. Roland Garros. I mean, it's hard to rank
Yeah, sure.
in order, but they all are really unique and special. But yeah, my last year here, I mean, it's pretty surreal. Like, I was kind of bummed out today, and I was like, wow, I'm gonna miss going into the locker room and their big bowl of berries, waiting for us to just dive into and playing at the courts and just the overall vibes here at Wimbledon. I think the way that they treat us, when you're competing in main draw here, it's really special. It's just amazing. I mean, the facilities too, that new park that we went to this morning. Yes. When I got out of the car, I had no idea. I thought we were going to a public park. I had no idea. I don't know what I was expecting. I think in my mind, because of the way I grew up and playing at tennis centers and stuff, I feel like my expectations aren't super high. Yeah. And so I was really thinking we were going to a public. I have no idea. And when I got out of the car and I walk into this state-of-the-art building, and I'm like, whoa! I was like, this isn't even just for Wimbledon. This is a community center that's fantastic. I'm thinking, oh my God. I was like, what in the world? These courts are amazing. Yeah. So everything they do at Wimbledon is just
unreal. Yeah.
It's unreal. I really just think the historical preservation and how they've been able to celebrate the history of the game going back so many, I mean, it is just fantastic. I love it. I hope that I can come back here every year, even if I'm not playing,
I'm sure you will have opportunities to come back.
Yeah, maybe I can get invited for something. Yeah. I don't know what, but something. I'm down for anything.
Yeah, of course.
Do you have a clear idea of what you want to do next?
Well, I really want to be a mom.
Okay. Nice.
I want that to kind of be my full-time job.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I love kids, and I really feel like once I have kids, I'll be pretty passionate about raising them and being, available for them as much as possible. I just have always wanted to be a mom, and it's an interesting question because people, I feel like because I've been so driven and in this environment where it's so much about ranking, success, performance, people are like, what are you going to do next? Because that's right. So many people, I feel like their thing is work. Mm-hmm. And I feel like for me, my thing has been work since I was so young. I feel like this has been a job for so long. And I really want to just be able to have some time to be able to be at home and enjoy my day-to-day and emphasize family and starting a family. So I don't really want there to be a ton of pressure on me in the future. I kind of want to be able to do something I really enjoy, that I'm able to make my own schedule. Yeah. There's not going to be any not before times. They're not going to be
schedule, just a dream.
Yeah, be able to pick my schedule. I don't want anyone being like, all right, we're going to be not before 7 today. And you're like, well, what do I do with that? I don't have time for any, or when they're not before 3 o'clock. And it's you can't really do much in the morning and you can't really do much in the evening because it's that weird time. Mm-hmm. So I'm really looking forward to just being able to be available for, hopefully I have to have kids first, we'll see how that goes, but I really want to be a mom. And I feel like people are so surprised by my answer.
I mean, I can't agree more. I am the oldest of 6 at home.
Yeah.
So I also love
6
kids.
siblings.
Yeah. Yeah, we're a big family, so.
I don't have any siblings. So
well, now she has kind of 5.
Yeah, but
so do you guys have a timeline, or is it too soon to ask?
I don't know if it's public information.
Oh, okay, we'll talk about that later.
I'm ready to be a dad whenever she wants.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay.
I'm getting ready.
You're getting ready. Okay. Yeah. All right. So yeah.
No, but it's true, and it's something that it's not spoken much. Being a women sports person, it's complicated, right? Because you have to give up so much if you want to.
If you want to be,
you can't have everything at the same time, and that's hard.
No, and I think the narrative of you can really have everything. You can be this uber successful mom that is also like the best mom and also like the best time. Like I respect like what like the I respect like that to a certain extent, but I also
not
feel
what you
like
want.
it's not always possible. That's not always the reality for
We
a
always
lot of
say
people.
that you can have
know?
everything in life, but not at the same time.
Yeah,
you really
that's
have,
exactly
you really have
right.
to choose.
Yeah,
And some parents and women will rather raise their kids, you know, home with a daily schedule, and some are fine to travel more, to
Right.
have a more active life, but it's very personal choice, and they are
Yeah.
all very respected, and it just you have to choose and go through your values.
Yeah, I
and
think for many people, not everyone can have it all. Some people might need to be at home for other reasons, other family members. Some people, you know, might need to be at home and not traveling the world and playing tennis because, you know, their kids need to be, you know, it's better for the kids to be in one space. But I mean, I have so much respect for the moms that are on tour and have made a comeback and have been doing really well. I mean, it is so impressive. I have no idea how they do it. I feel like it's hard enough for me to just deal with myself. I don't know how Carol Wozniacki, like, how does she, like, 2 kids? That's crazy. That's
your
wild. I admire her so much, and it's impressive, but I don't know if I could do that. I mean, it's a hard job, and it's not an easy one.
already to take care of yourself sometimes it looks like it's a bit
Oh, it's a lot taking care of
too
myself.
much.
It's too much. Yeah. I mean, and you know, also being able to find the support, right? It's a big commitment to ask, you know, I don't think my parents would be able to travel with me watching my kids 24/7. I mean, that would be tough. And I don't, you know how that would work. I would have to get some help, you know, to help watch the kids. And I've been having a hard enough time finding a coach, let alone, you know, hiring a nanny. That's a big job. So, it's all things I would have to, you know, consider. But I think ultimately too, I've kind of, you know, really just accepted, like, I'm ready for my next chapter and I'm cool with that. Like,
Was it hard for you to make the decision?
No.
No?
It was one of the easiest decisions of my life. It was. I feel like I wanted to retire 3 years ago. You know, I mean, as much as I love traveling the world and playing professional tennis, there's been some really challenging times, and a lot of it has not always been that much fun. I've had some fun on tour, of course, but a lot of it has been incredibly stressful, demanding, time-consuming. The amount of funerals, weddings, important milestones that I've missed, and so many of the people that I love and I'm close to. People don't realize how much, you know, you give your life up for your career. And I know in other careers it can be like that also. I have so much respect for it, but I think the beautiful thing about tennis is the way that we're able to be also financially compensated. We get the luxury to sometimes retire a little bit earlier. And I feel like because of that, you know, it made the decision even easier for me, at least.
When you choose, it was your last year, you were not afraid of having regrets?
Not really. You know, I feel like I've achieved like so many of the things that I've wanted to achieve. Of course, there's more I'd like to achieve, but I think that's like that. There's always something else. You know, I felt like too, like I announced my retirement at the beginning of the year. So I'm like, look, we've got like 18 to 22 tournaments. Like you get 18 to 22 shots at achieving some of these goals. And if you don't achieve it within that time period, then you know, it just wasn't meant to be. And you gave it your all, and I can walk away feeling like, all right, I've given myself the best shot. So no, I think it was really healthy for me to be able to give myself a little bit of a timeline, and to say like, look, this is what I want to do. And also like it's been amazing, like the fan base that I've been able to build over the last couple of years. And I can't tell you how many people have been like, oh my gosh, thank you for announcing your retirement. Now I can like plan to see you at Wimbledon, and I can see you at the US Open, or I can see you in Cincinnati, and I can see you in like Rome, because I've never been to Rome. And so that's been incredibly special, how people have been able to come to the events to support me in my last year. And you know, my family and friends have also worked their work-life schedule, you know, around my tennis a little bit, so they can be there for me. And it's been really cool. It's been hard for me on tour sometimes. I'm such a homebody, and someone that loves being at home. And if I could work from home, maybe it'd be a different story.
Or you can be a tennis coach.
Yeah.
But remote.
in the nearby school.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing that's kind of interesting too, is like, I really love tennis so much, and in all aspects, not just professional tennis. I almost love tennis by itself away from professional tennis more than I love professional tennis. I love going out with an adult that's never played tennis and trying to teach them how to play tennis. I love it. I have the patience for it. And
I've been demanding my classes for 1 year. It never didn't happen yet.
yeah, I say that, and then I haven't really taught Brian yet, but
But it looked so good.
I've left that. Yeah, I know. I've left that to like
Well, you have plenty
Ryan
of
and
time
other friends. But I love going out and playing tennis for like the enjoyment of the game versus like going out and like trying to win trophies or like figure out how to like, you know, to tactically play against one of the best players in the world. That's really hard. I love going and having a hit with like a young junior player. I love going out on court and meeting a young kid that loves tennis and getting to spend time with them. I'm also so competitive. Like I would definitely jump in like a 4.5 women's doubles match. And like, if there's a trophy involved,
You want it.
I might be, playing.
And knowing it's your last year, do you feel lighter or something? Do you...
I don't. I feel like, I mean, for me, I've always been so driven and someone that I feel like in a lot of ways have had to work harder than a lot of people on tour because I didn't have immediate success at a young age. I, went to college and then like I started playing and I was like, grinding on the ITFs for a little bit and then made it to tour and was in like that 30 to 50 range for a little while. And so I just feel like I've had to put so much work in it. And I'm like, well, I've put so much work in it, this is it. I better, achieve. I better achieve some of the things that I wanted to achieve because I've worked so hard for it. So I feel like in some ways, like, I don't want to say it's added more pressure, but I think in some ways it's kind of like, well, this is it. I'm doing this and now's the time to try to accomplish the things I want to, because after next year it's going to be different. Yeah, the animal mode's going to be gone. It's like Michael Jackson, I think his like final year touring the world, it was like, it was called the This Is It tour.
Yeah.
So this is it.
Yes.
Well, try to enjoy it.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about the, I don't know if I'm going to say it well,
Endometriosis.
Just like, because you speak out loud about it, and it's true that in women athletes, there is some things like this that happen and can be very tricky for performance, but it stays very silent at the end.
Yeah.
How important was for you to share it?
Yeah, I think for a long time, so many of my injuries and the chronic pain I was dealing with was from my endometriosis. And for a long time, I didn't have a diagnosis of that. And so we always just thought, oh, it's a back injury and it's an ab injury and it's this and it's that. And while it was those things, we didn't really understand why these injuries were always popping up, especially right before my period. And then it really made sense when I found out that I had endometriosis, that I was having pain in that area. And it really explained why my period seemed to be so much more painful than a lot of my friends and family's periods. And it was incredible when I looked at my results. When I didn't have great results, it seemed to be always around my period. And then when I had better results, it was far away from my period. So that diagnosis was really important for me to be able to have a normal, healthy life. I mean, I felt almost totally dysfunctional around my cycle when it would come, because I had something abnormal going on and it required surgery. And I felt like I was really lucky that when I had surgery, it changed my life so much. But I know for a lot of other people who have had endometriosis, unfortunately, they've had 2 or 3 surgeries and that hasn't helped them, or they've needed to do other treatment options and they still struggle with it. So I've been very fortunate in the sense that I had surgery and it really helped me, and being able to have treatment afterwards has been able to kind of help me maintain a healthy balance, and be able to manage my, day to day, because I rely so much on my body to physically perform. So that's a unique thing about my job. But even if I didn't, I feel like if I had kept going and not knowing what I was dealing with and not be able to get treatment, even if I was working at a computer and not physically performing, it would have affected me, I think, in some ways, probably even more. So I feel like so many women don't get a diagnosis for endometriosis, and a lot of women go to doctors and they explain that their cycles are really painful. They explain their symptoms and often get ignored or sent off to the next doctor, and it takes years and years for them to get a diagnosis. And I think that's partly because, like you said, people are quiet and don't really talk about their menstrual cycle so much. It's almost like a taboo. But for me, like, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I talk about I'm an open book. I talk about pretty much anything. I know how painful it is living with this condition. And if there's any women that are out there going through what I've experienced, I want to be a friend for them and be able to help them in any way I can. And that's part of the reason why at the end of the year, I'm really hoping to do some more charity with women's health. And I am looking forward to figuring out how I can be involved more in helping women. It's something I feel like I was so lucky in a lot of ways, having the resources financially, having a good steady job, and having great healthcare. I've had access to some of the best doctors in the world, and that was part of the reason why I've been able to, live my life more comfortably with it. But for so many women around the world, they don't have access to good healthcare, and they don't have the resources to be able to have the same experience as me, and that makes me really sad. In my perfect world, I'd want everybody to have perfect healthcare and people to be able to have the same access across the board to the best doctors in the world. And so that's really kind of sparked my passion for women's health and trying to get involved in helping others. We're going to talk about some fashion.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Fashion.
Yes.
Okay.
So now maybe we're going to reverse roles. You can lead the questions and the conversations.
Okay. I could interview you on your podcast.
Yes, we can do
Do
part
that.
2 next time, and we do
Sounds
Part
good.
2. Okay. Yeah,
Sounds
I'll
like a deal.
interview you. I have lots of great questions.
Yeah.
I do. I have some good ones.
Okay. We let her ask 3 if she wants now.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. So where do I want to start? Okay, so let's talk about tennis fashion on court. Let's talk about some tennis fashion. You always have some great, cute outfits from Yonex. I feel like it's easy for you to wear pretty much anything on court and look good. I feel like we could put you in like a paper bag and you would look amazing. But
Not
yeah.
sure I will get out of it.
So, like, how passionate are you about like your outfits on court? Is it something that makes you feel better, like when you go on court, knowing that you look good and does it make you feel better? Or, what is it like? I know it's different for every player.
I'm not super into fashion compared to some other girls, but I need to feel good in my outfit, that it fits me well, that I feel comfortable, that I can do my sport well with it, which is very important, that I don't get annoyed. Many times I can be struggling with the look, like, okay, maybe this outfit makes me look bigger or like fat or whatever. And so this is always something.
Well, you never look that way. You always
I know,
look
but,
great.
Like everyone has this struggle.
Yes,
So
of
this
course.
is one of my.
You always look great on court. So
And like something simple, elegant, and that's where I like it.
nice. Yeah, you and I are very similar. I would say I'm into fashion maybe a little bit more, but not quite as much as some of the other players on tour. I'm all about comfort. I just want to be comfortable. That's why I've played literally in the same outfit from like, I don't know, February to now.
almost now, yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
just
mandatory to
yes,
change the full white.
yeah. So I just have kept the same match top and skirt because I'm so big on comfort that I can't compromise on. But I've been really lucky, I guess, like to working with my sponsor, Free People Movement. They are the best company to work with. I feel like I never have to compromise on my on finding something that I really enjoy playing in and something that suits me well. I go through the same thing too, where I will sometimes be like, oh, does this make me look like, this, like, I'm bloated this week. Like, do I look a little, like I have a food baby? Yeah, most of the time I do have a food baby, but because I love food, but I felt like for a few years I didn't have a clothing sponsor, and it was hard for me to really find a company that I felt like was aligned with my values and goals. And I feel like Free People and Free People Movement really embody what I'm about. I can't think of a more free person than and free-spirited person, that's for sure. So it's really been the perfect partnership in my eyes. They have a very strong sense of fashion. They have some incredible designers making very fashionable pieces on court for everyone. And it's just been a dream come true working with this company. It took me a couple of years of being very patient and waiting for the right opportunity, which was important to me because
it's complicated sometimes to find a company or sponsors that always match your values. And on top of it, the outfit, it's very important. Like if you need to be feeling well in. Yeah,
you have to be feeling, confident on court. You have to trust the product, which is not always easy. I mean, not all products are comparable to other companies and the same. So you have to be really aligned with the people that you're working with to make sure that you get what you need, because those contracts too can be very complicated, and the normal tennis fan doesn't understand what that all entails. But it's just been a dream come true working with Free People Movement. The outfits that I've been able to wear off the court too, with them having a very nice lineup of athleisure clothes, has been incredible. I just love being in like a little outfit like this. It's like
very Wimbledon.
Yeah,
outfit.
it's very Wimbledon.
It's very Wimbledon.
White and green. It's comfy. I can wear it, lounging around here in your house, or I can wear it out while I'm shopping, or if I'm getting ready to go to the locker room and get treatment, I can wear it there. I can wear it to go get lunch. Their stuff is so versatile and fun to wear, and it's cute and fun colors, and it's just
that white and dark green outfit from Miami was very nice.
Rome as well, no?
It was dark blue kind of.
I mixed it up and went blue, and now same outfit but all white.
Okay.
Yeah, and then US Open I'll probably do a different outfit just to kind of change it up a little bit.
A bit of colors.
Yeah, do some more colors, maybe some red and blue. Olympics will be kind of cool. So there's a huge lineup that they have of different outfits that you can wear on the tennis court, but I love my, just being in my comfort zone, and I kind of shop like a guy too in some ways, where I buy the same thing in every single color.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the same way with handbags and shoes too.
You don't change too much, so you were fine wearing the exact same color for all the
I know I know there's some fashion police accounts out there that have judged me for that, but I love this outfit.
I'm fine wearing the same outfit, but I like to change colors. I like changing colors.
Do you like to work in fashion afterwards, not right after tennis, but would you like to be involved in some way?
I would love to be involved in fashion. I think being an athlete and understanding fit and product testing and making sure that it's all functional is something I'm passionate about. Free People Movement does a great job of fit testing a lot of their products, and spending a lot of time and putting a lot of thoughtfulness into everything that they do. But yeah, I I definitely would work in fashion. Who knows? Maybe they'll like hire me in their little fashion department. That would be amazing. I'll have to talk to my friends at FP Movement.
It's time to start building your resume, you know?
I know. Yeah, that would be fun.
I've been tasting clothes for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
True.
Wait, when is the podcast going to come out? After Olympics? Yeah.
Right, like...
Right in the...
Yeah.
Okay, because I have something I could share that's pretty fun. So I'm putting together a little gift package for my teammates at Olympics.
Okay, nice.
So we could talk about what's in the bag. I have some pretty incredible teammates that I've known for a while. Emma Navarro went to the same university that I did at UVA. Yeah, so we have a pretty special connection through being Cavaliers together. And we weren't there at the same time, but same school. And I've known Jess Pagula for forever. Coco Gauff is younger than me, but I also feel like I've known Coco I've known her. Yeah, I've known Coco like for a good portion of her life now because she's so young. So and Desiree Krychek grew up playing a lot of the same junior tournaments as her, going to the same nationals when we were like 12 years old, which is so crazy. So with it being Olympic year and us being on the same team, like I thought I'd put together a fun little gift package. I love getting gifts for people and spoiling my friends. So gifts are like really fun for me. And I did a fun little package. So I'll show you guys. I found a beautiful jeweler in New York who helped me design and put together a special necklace for the girls on the team, because most of us, it's our first Olympics, except for Jess. Jess played in Tokyo. But I'm going to show you guys a picture of the necklace because it is so cute. And the team did such a good job. So I want to show you. It's basically going to be this.
Nice.
Cool.
Yes.
That's nice.
This necklace on a little gold chain. And so like the little diamonds and like a little red ruby because like red, white, and blue.
That was your idea?
It was my idea.
Nice.
Very good.
Well,
You have to get one now.
It wasn't. Well, the necklace was my idea, but the design was more from my friend Sophie Ratner. She's based in New York. She has her own jewelry line and company, which is super cool. You guys can check them out on Instagram.
We'll put the link in the episode.
Yeah, so she's going to she's making the necklace for us. She did the design and helped kind of bring my vision to life, which was really amazing. And then I also put together my friend, a good friend of mine, started a sunglass company called Crew. They're based in New Orleans, and they are making some sunglasses with a beautiful engraving on the side and some special personalizations on there. Nice. So it'll be fun to see. I'll have to send you guys some photos so you guys can check out.
Check Instagram account of everyone.
Yeah. So I try to be like a thoughtful friend and teammate as much as I can. But yeah. So I'm trying to think. I have a few questions. So your dad coached you for a long time. Yeah. So how, like, is it okay to talk about, like, okay, like, how is it when you're working with, like, I know a lot of players on tour, you know, work with their parents as coaches. And how is that dynamic? Like, what is that like? I feel like so many of the people watching, you know, get to see, but what is it truly like? Like, is it, I know there's probably, you know, good days and ups and downs like anything, but
to me, what is most difficult sometimes, especially when you're kind of younger, it's to make the difference between when is your coach kind of talking to you and when is your father around. Because sometimes, you know, like you say, like on court, it's very difficult time, and you know, your coach sometimes needs to push you, especially when you need to learn and when you need to train hard, and this kind of dialogue, and it's coming out from your dad,
Yeah.
and you want this character in your life to be someone supporting, to be someone like saying, hey, it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And a coach, sometimes it's not really the dialogue that they can have, because they need to push you to improve. And to me, this was the hardest part. And after, so obviously I travel a lot with my dad, and sometimes my mom stayed home to work and earn money also. And yeah, that was that chemistry, you know, like when you're always together also, it's not as good, because you don't enjoy every single moment, because there is like all the stress and all the tension about tennis. And sometimes, you know, like when you get like what we talk, you know, like sometimes to your coach you would say something on the court a bit too harsh or whatever, and as it's also a strong bond, you know, like you don't want to lose it or break it for something you said on court. And this chemistry, sometimes it's quite difficult to have.
What are your thoughts on it, on parents coaching kids?
I think a lot of times for children, I think a lot of times the best way that they can learn is through their parents, and being able to have something like a sport, be able to bond children and their parents together in a healthy way, I think is important. I think kids can learn really well through their parents, but then it's like Caro was saying, finding that balance, right, of when parents are to be parents and when it's time for them to be the coach, and to give a little bit of tough love, right? And so I think that can be incredibly challenging. And we've all seen situations on tour where people do a really great job and are successful and have a great relationship with their parents when they are the coach, and then other times where it doesn't go as well and it can be really challenging, which is understandable. But
I think it's very important that the dad doesn't live like their dreams through the kid, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
Like, of course, you can maybe coach him. I'm not sure if that's a great idea, but if you do, but it's really important that at the end it's the kid choosing to be a tennis player, right? And that.
I think it's important that it's the child's choice, right? And that also the parent has their own identity that isn't completely centered around their kid's success, right? Because I think a lot of parents seem to get wrapped up in the wins and losses a little bit too much. And when there's too much of an emphasis on that, I think that can be hard on the relationship. But I do think there can be a lot of benefits to children working with their parents as coaches. I look a lot of times at Coco Gauff's parents and their family situation, and I have so much respect. And I'm not with them every day, so I don't totally know, but it seems like a very healthy, happy situation. It seems like the parents know when to let the coaches, really kind of take over, and they know when to take a step back. And I just really, I feel like those are two people, like if I ever wanted to like ask for like advice, like for parenting, I would feel like I'd want to go to them and ask, because Coco is pretty well-rounded, a confident kid, someone that's very happy and bubbly and kind, and really all of the things, you would want in a person, right? So, it's a tricky thing to balance though, right? And you can't get it perfect all the time.
With all the travel and the time we spend together, it's not easy. Of course, also like when I had my huge success and my father was there, it was unbelievable to be able to share just this emotion together. But sometimes it's true, like after
they can also be there, no, as a dad. No, at the end they can stay.
But sometimes like for me, I was more emotional and he was more emotional in the tougher moment, and sometimes it's harder, obviously.
Yeah. And I think it's people too don't realize that. Like for someone like you reached a lot of success. You were very successful at a young age. And I think from a lot of times from a safety standpoint, it's important to have your parent around to protect you. There have definitely been, unfortunate situations in the tennis world. There's no denying that. And I think sometimes if the healthiest person to be around is the parent, to protect them and to offer them the correct guidance and be able to look out for them, I think that's a good thing, because it can be tough if you're having to figure out and navigate through this world by yourself and you don't have the support from your parents, you know.
I agree.
don't know.
Yeah, there is
But-
always.
Yeah, there's
some
no
good
one
at-
easy,
yeah,
an easy
there's-
answer to this, right? I think it will depend on the quality of the parents, no, if they can be
Yeah.
good coaches or not. If they're good humans with good values and what they want is
That's
really the
very
best for
true.
the kid,
Yeah,
then
that's
for
very
sure
true.
it can work very well.
It's very personal.
Me, a question I have is objectivity, and I think Ivan Lubitsch, he was talking in the episode that he cannot coach his kid because he believes he's not going to be objective. He's going to mix,
That's
so at the end he's
unbelievable.
stepping out of and he's a crazy good coach. He was coaching
Yeah,
Federer, and
I know that is.
No,
and
no,
he
he's-
does believe that he cannot be a good coach for his
Yeah,
for his
because
kid.
he says.
But
that-
what a great level of like maturity too, if he really genuinely feels that way and
It's a
he
huge-
has the
No, he says that when he go watch his son, because sometimes he does, he gets frustrated. And sometimes he feel very bad about it. So he try to keep like his distance. And he's been a successful player and then a successful coach. And
He thinks he doesn't have the tools. To
even
coach his
him,
kid.
he feels like,
wow.
I cannot do it. So like,
Well, in fact, he was very loud on saying that he thinks no parents should be coaching kids.
Yeah.
He thinks that being a parent is a huge role already, a role that is evolving like nonstop, and that he was saying that you have to stay like just as a father because they will need you as a father, and if you are a coach, you might not be able to be a good father. I don't
It
know.
depends, I guess, on the
Of course.
situation and the personalities.
does,
Because I think there's been so many wonderful success
course, of
stories and
course.
people who have,
Exactly.
great
Wozniacki.
relationship. Yeah, Wozniacki's dad, a lovely man. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like one of my favorite people to see on tour.
Yeah.
And they have a great relationship and dynamic. And, it just depends, right? I feel like it's not always
Exactly.
black and white.
Definitely. And what might work for Carol
Yeah.
might work for you and the other way around. I mean,
Yeah, it depends on the kid also. Some kids really learn best through their parents and other kids learn better through other people. So, but I definitely applaud him for being able to be like, this isn't for me and this is what's best for my child and to, it's a very selfless thing to do because a lot of people would probably push themselves to try to
No, it takes a huge amount of humility and self-awareness to realize that you're not being the best coach. So
Yes.
it's crazy.
Okay, one last short question.
all right.
What are your biggest passions outside of the tennis court, and how do you find the time with this crazy tennis schedule to be able to
So before I didn't really look for time to do something else outside of tennis. Since we are together, he opens my eyes a lot to do something different and to like, okay, maybe in 5 hours I made my tennis practice and now I can relax alone in my room, or I can go and have a tour around, go visit London or something. And this was like quite an eye opener, even if it's not always easy on tour and you would like to do it in your real home.
Yeah, of course.
But it makes your day very different.
Yeah.
And even if I have a 3-hour tour in London, the next day I will be able to compete.
Yeah.
And I did not believe it at the beginning, but now I do.
Yeah.
And and after I like to read podcast. The podcast is really something inspiring me a lot to do.
Yeah.
And it got me a lot outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
To ask questions, to step in, to do stuff like this. Already to ask players to do it was a nightmare for me. After it's more like being in the nature environment, like go for a walk, go for a run, and spend time with family, things like that.
Just the simple things.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love that.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
I
Like-
love that.
Like every time when we go back to Europe sometimes and we go in his family, it's like just like having I just want to have lunch on the terrace near the pool. I'm happy with that. Like, I said, I'm like, I'm fine, I'm fine.
That's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, most humans, we get happiness from the same things, right? Spending time with the loved ones.
She's a simple woman. I
Yeah,
mean, and that's
it is.
beauty, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. What about you? I'm curious. Like, you started a relationship like around 1 year ago, right?
Yeah, about a year ago.
Did it make it any easier for you to leave tennis? The fact that you know that there's someone kind of waiting for you after?
Yeah, I feel like with Brian, he didn't know much about tennis.
Okay.
So he watched and paid more attention to the golf. And so when I told him I was a tennis player, like he was like, "Oh, that's so interesting." And he didn't really know much about it. I think he kind of had to like research more into it and like things to kind of think about and
Who is
ask.
Danielle Collins?
Yeah, like how does the sport work? Like, explaining to someone how the tournaments are and the schedule and when you're third match on versus like when you play at 11 and they're like, what does third match on mean? Like, that kind of stuff. Explaining the score. Yeah, so, but I think with Brian, I mean, Brian's so easy to be around and so laid back and we just clicked right away and so it's pretty easy and we've been really fortunate too to be able to spend a ton of time together. He doesn't travel with me full time, but he has a lot of flexibility because he has remote days, so he's at most of the tournaments. There's only been a few tournaments that he hasn't been present at, and so like you guys have experienced, we have gotten to know each other at a faster pace, I think, because of how much time we've spent together. Good, bad, whatever, it is, we've gotten to experience. And he's gotten to kind of see the highs and lows and nature of tennis. And it definitely expedites things a bit. So yeah, it's been nice. I mean, I think when you have someone that you can share like the really precious memories with, it makes it more fun and enjoyable. And I think you cherish the memories more than when you're, alone and doing things, it's just not the same. So, I mean, it's so special. I mean, I have to say too, like, I haven't known you like on a deep personal level, but I definitely have noticed a glow about Caro, so I feel like this has been the happiest I've seen Caro, really ever. And not to say that you weren't, experience happiness before, but I think you're definitely having more fun and enjoying yourself. So it's really special that you can you're bringing that to the table and you get to share these memories together. It's really special.
Yeah, I mean, like, purpose of life also is to be able to share, like with your close one, with your partner, and to like, when you share something, it's just the emotion with it is so much stronger to me. So
yeah.
And like it's someone you can have always to be able to share like how you feel or your struggle, and like there is no judgment, because it's a world we are like, there is a lot of judgment, and it's very important to like, for me, like this helped me so much with it.
You need friendship and
like,
to be able to have
in the
shared
morning
experience.
just to say, like, I feel terribly stressed about what's coming today, like the match, and like, even if sometimes you have maybe no reason on the paper, but it's just like,
yeah, but also to be with your person, ultimately, right? Because if you and I were living together, you might not have the same, as much fun as I think we'd have, it might not feel quite the same when you're telling me about your stressful day versus when you're telling, your soulmate that
exactly.
that about your stresses and what lies ahead, right? So that connection, I think, is a really beautiful thing. I mean, you're not going to find that with everyone, right? So that's also part of it. But it's incredible.
That's cool.
So, okay, well, this was fantastic.
We have 2 little questions we ask everyone at the end.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
And then we are done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which advice will you give to your younger self?
Advice I'd give to my younger self. I mean, not to worry too much, right? I mean, I feel like we spend so much time worrying, whether it's worrying about whether we're going to get to from one place to the other, or planning, or and half the things we worry about never even happen.
Yes.
Yep.
I know that.
I mean,
word.
more than half. I think I saw a study. They say it's like
90%,
90. Yeah, it's like something crazy. So
stay present, no? I think like at the end, when you stay present, you don't worry much. It's when you let your brain travel into the future that gets a bit scary.
I think so. the other piece of advice I'd give to my younger self, I think dedicating time to breathing each day. I mean, it sounds so like granola, right? And I feel like everybody talks about yoga and breathe, but like it's so true. I feel like if you can understand different breathing patterns and rhythms and ways of breathing, I think it can help you in so many different situations, and it can help you get out of so many different funks. It can make you feel better, like physically, mentally, emotionally. I think so much can be done with breathing, and it's such an underrated tool.
Cool.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
good one.
Good tip.
Very good one.
Yeah.
And who would you like to listen in the podcast? One man, one woman.
I would love for you to bring your fellow Frenchie on the show, Benoit Paire.
Oh, okay.
I have so many questions, like
Okay, would you like to
he's a
interview
very
him?
interesting. Sure, I'll interview Benoit.
Okay, we could do that.
Okay,
That could be fun.
I'll come interview Benoit. That would be cool.
Let's try in the US.
Yeah.
What is he doing now?
I don't know. I think he took a break. I think he took a break. I don't know what he's
Okay,
doing.
so I was thinking like maybe he was like in Ibiza or like
Well, I mean,
partying
party-
somewhere. But yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I think the thing, I think what's really interesting about Benoit is like obviously like the talent, the skills, right? And then like the mental side, like he's had some incredible accomplishments on court, some wonderful success. And then he's also somebody that wears his heart on his sleeve, and his, just like everybody has had ups and downs. So I'd love to like understand that.
Cool.
Someone else that I would love to.
One woman.
One woman that I'd love to get on the show. Ooh. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of the players in the top 10 have been interviewed and marketed like extensively. We know so many of their stories, right? I mean, and I've spent a lot of time talking to so many of the women on tour. I don't know as many men. I really find Trevisan and Paolini, I find them very, very interesting.
Yes. Okay.
I would love that. Those are two interesting people, competitors. I think they're fantastic. I love watching both of them compete. They do incredible things. And coming from smaller country like Italy, and the way they represent their country, I think is just so admirable. Yeah, they are everything I think that embodies like a true competitor. So I would love to learn more about them.
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Nice. Love it.
I love their spirit on the court. It's just
Yeah.
fantastic. They seem like such
Remarkable.
nice people.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome.
Wow, that
Thank
was
you very
Yes,
much, Danielle. That was
thank you so
amazing.
much. Amazing.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast. Stay tuned for our next episodes, and in the meantime, it would mean the world to us if you can hit the subscribe button on the platform where you're listening to our podcast, and also if you can leave a positive review. It will help us reach new people. Thank you very much, and see you soon.
See you soon.